Hello everyone and welcome to Hats Off. I'm your host, and that sound under your bed, D'Angelo Edwards. Do you feel that, boys and girls? The coolness in the air. We can't go outside. The smell of pumpkins and candied apples. Can't smell through the mask. The excitement of choosing a costume? The country is gearing up for what might be the most important election. Okay, stop, okay? I don't want to talk about that. No one does. Just let me cope, okay? Good. We are going to talk about children's horror shows. Great. Now the energy is all weird. If you've been on this channel for a while, you've probably picked up that one of my favorite genres is horror. I love a good scare. I used to be terrified of everything as a kid, but for some reason I would always go back for more. I love the classics like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street. Some recent movies like Hereditary and Parasite become some of my favorite movies. And I am one of the biggest fans of the Puppet Master series you can find around. It's a movie franchise about killer puppets. That's what I am, minus the killer part, allegedly. I saw you do it. And guess who can't leave? But something that I really appreciate, and I feel doesn't get enough credit, is children's horror. Children's horror has always fascinated me, because in my opinion, some of the most creative scares come from it. When you're making horror for kids, you can't just go heavy on gore or rack up the kills. You're not allowed. So if you want those nerds good and traumatized, you gotta think outside the box. Of course, you have your heavy hitters like Courage, Goosebumps, Invader Zim, and the like, but you guys already know about all that stuff. You don't need me talking about it. So today, I'm gonna go through some kids' horror that'll scratch that itch if you're looking for something new. So strap in, cause I'm gonna be taking my hat off to children's horror shows. Starting off the list, I'm gonna cover the most recent of the bunch. The Last Kids on Earth is a series that premiered on Netflix about a year ago, and it is a seriously fun time. Based on the book of the same name, The Last Kids on Earth tells the story of 4 friends trying to navigate through the apocalypse together. Zombies, monsters, and more are constantly trying to off the crew, but with these guys being kids, you know they're gonna try and have a good time, especially the main character Jack, who is treating the whole thing like a sort of video game. While not the biggest in scares, the show still manages to have some pretty tense moments. And a few times, I thought they might actually axe off one of the characters, which will be bad because I really like the cast. As I mentioned before, Jack, the main character, thinks of the world as a game. He's loud, brave, and kind of obnoxious, but nothing too off-putting. It's really nice seeing him get excited over all the cool stuff he gets to do, and he even has some sweet moments when he starts to see his friends as a kind of a found family, with him being a foster kid and all. There's also his best friend Quint, a cool nerdy guy who's always inventing new gadgets and trying to prove his worth. June, a tough-as-nails former school journalist who fights with a spear, and is also Jack's love interest. And Dirk Savage, a former bully turned protector of the group, whose name is Dirk Savage. God, every so often the people in these shows just kinda nail it with the names. The group has a really good dynamic, and it's cool watching the threats escalate as the characters also go up in skill level. While in the beginning, zombies are a really big threat, by the time the 3rd season rolls around, they're more of a nuisance to the group. You really get the feeling that everyone is getting better at their roles. And besides the character writing, the animation isn't half bad either. It's rigged animation, but it's some pretty quality stuff. Nothing amazing, but definitely a leg up over your usual rig show. The designs of the monsters are really cool too. It's not perfect though. The plot is kinda predictable and there are a few out of character moments, but as a whole, this is a solid series that I would have ate up as a kid. Prime Saturday morning material. Give it a watch. Next up, we're gonna head over to Amazon Prime, where after about a week of navigating through its janky UI, you'll find a neat little gem called Costume Quest. While Last Kids was based on a book, this show was actually based on a video game, which might scream red flag, but trust me, it's legit. Costume Quest tells the story of 4 kids whose town is invaded by monsters. So to stop the invasion, they don magic costumes and fight against the menace. Guys, I love this show. From the style, to the voice acting, to the humor, It is top to bottom fun, and it does not deserve to rot in Amazon Prime. And neither does Nico and the Sword of Light, but that's for later. Costume Quest is such a feel-good show that takes me right back to being a kid. This is the show that's probably the lowest in terms of scares, bearing a few genuinely creepy moments, but it nails that Halloween spirit to a T. The fall palette used to create the town is gorgeous, and it kind of reminds me of Hilda in all the best ways. The kids are super cute, and they get some really funny lines. And the fact that the monsters power up by eating nougat, and for some reason, the entire town is obsessed with the stuff, cracks me up. I mean, it's nougat. Nougat. I like nougat, but it's usually on the lower end of people's candy list. But what really blows me away is the creativity of the show. When the kids use their costumes to fight the monsters, they really think outside the box. Like, one costume is a game show host, and the amount of mileage they get out of that is astounding. The plot's also really cool, with monsters hiding in society, and the kids doing their best to sniff them out. There are even some really sweet moments too, and you get to see the friends grow closer and learn more about each other. A fun ride all the way through. If you want some Halloween nostalgia, I definitely recommend it. Next up, stepping away from the cartoons, we have a series from the UK called Creeped Out. I think the best way to describe Creeped Out is if Goosebumps and Black Mirror had a baby. And it's a pretty good baby. Wait, Creeped Out is essentially the new generation's Goosebumps, but with a massive bump in quality. It's really well shot, and the kids here do a way better job than most of the Goosebumps squad. And unlike the first two shows I mentioned, this one can actually get legit scary sometimes. Like, they'll tell some freaky stories, and the people in them don't always end up okay. Like, in one episode, a babysitter slacks off while the kid that she's supposed to be looking after tells her about his imaginary friend. And unsurprisingly, the imaginary friend doesn't like her. And as the night goes on, you'll learn that he's not that imaginary. There's another one where a kid takes being a troll on the internet too seriously, and he finds out that he's becoming one in real life. And another one where a kid makes a wish for some obedient parents, only to learn that she's pretty much made them puppets. I took offense to this one, but I got through it. And most of these are actually pretty creepy. And they vary. It's not just the same monster stories you hear all the time. There are some actual unique tales told here, and they're told through the lens of the curious. A masked child who wanders about, collecting scary stories. And just the look of this guy was enough to get me to check out the show. I really think this show will go on to be one of the classics, beloved just as much as Are You Afraid of the Dark and Goosebumps, though thankfully this one will age better. Last but not least, I have a real treat for you guys. This one comes all the way from the mystical land of Canada, so I gotta talk quick. If Benzy hears me coming for his turf, it's over for me, so let's go. Freaky Stories is a hidden gem for horror fans, and I need to give it the love it deserves just for how hard it tried to be unique. Freaky Stories is something I have wanted for a long time. An animated horror anthology series. Every episode focuses on a new scary tale, and every segment is animated in a different style. One moment it'll be dark and foreboding, and the next it'll look like a show straight from the funny pages. And not just the style changes, but the genres as well. Some are more funny, others have silent characters. One of them is a full-blown musical. You never know what you're gonna get when you tune in. And that's not even the best part. The wraparound segments of the show feature animatronic bug puppets hosting the cartoons. Why wasn't this aired over here? I would have loved this show. Some of the stories can get pretty spooky, but because it's an anthology, there are also a few clunkers thrown in there. But when it hits hard. And it is definitely worth sitting through the not so good ones for those pockets of gold. This show makes excellent background ambience when you're in a spooky mood. You know, it's funny that this show came from Canada, considering that's also where we got Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark. Maybe scaring kids is how they get their hostility out. I mean, if so, I get it. It's probably a more well-known show over there, but the rest of the world needs to give it some love too. I would love if they rebooted it and got some new blood working on it. It could be something really special. And if they need a new puppet host, well, my people will call your people. There are plenty more kids' horror shows if these are enough for you. Well, maybe not plenty, but more. Mobile Mystery seems really interesting, and it still has a small but loyal fan following. The Extreme Ghostbusters is a cult classic that I think everyone needs to experience. And I've been recommended Creep School by some people, and that looks kinda neat too. Kids need horror shows. It's important to give them variety, or they might never learn what their tastes are. Comedy and action are great, and I love them, but you gotta spice things up every now and again. Plus, I was traumatized by so many shows as a kid, and I want today's youth to know my pain. I might be petty, but I'm also right. So if any of these shows interest you, then I highly suggest you try them out. You'll have a spooky blast. Now, if you guys will excuse me, I have to go.
Did I hear someone say Gala?